This is how Jin Ping Mei is read. Chapter 46. The Embroidered Portrait Version. The Yuan night parade encountered snow and rain, and the wives and concubines teased Geyer the storybook. The Yuan night parade encountered snow and rain. The wives and concubines teased Geyer 1. Banquet at Simon's house. The text in the first 2 chapters seems uneventful, and even has limited interest. However, this is actually the necessary idle writing in the novel, compared with dramas, which are always exciting and have climaxes one after another. Novels need to be relaxed, combining fast and slow, with both tense conflicts and transitional text. That seem like nothing major is happening, brewing new turmoil in the calm, so that they can be combined. It forms a flesh and blood novel skeleton. The plot structure of A Dream of Red Mansions can also prove this theory, and careful readers can check it in detail. This chapter is the last section of the Lantern Festival this year. The text stretches for several chapters. The fireworks are gorgeous and lively. There are 3 noisy banquets in a row. Finally, it ends with a deserted night rain, which leads to the wives and concubines. Divination of Geyer Gua is a summary in the middle of the book, in the form of the second ice judgment of life. As Simon King is reaching the peak of his life, the cold foreshadowing of his future fireworks-like demise really shows the author's good intentions. The 3 banquets in this chapter are the Simon family's banquet for helpers, the Ben family's banquet for family members, and the Wu family's banquet for wives and concubines. They all happen during dinner time, overlapping each other in time, and the text descriptions were also described in the way of movie montage. The scenes were exchanged many times and interspersed with each other. It was dazzling and amazing. Therefore, for the sake of clarity, we will separate the 3 banquets and observe them separately. Judging from the description, the banquet at Simon's house was completely fictitious, because the wives and concubines went to Wu's house for the banquet, and the servants and maids were bored and watched the fireworks in the back. At this moment, the author created an opportunity for Yuxiao and Shedong to flirt. They also flirted over a pot of wine in chapter 31. The 2 of them were pressed together to grab melon seeds and eat them. Unexpectedly, there was a tin bottle of wine sitting on the fire pot. They pushed it over. The fire started to rise, and ashes spread all over the ground. Press in one place means they are having a great time. Ancient people all built houses made of wood and were most afraid of open fires. This winter, the fire in the brazier was ignited by alcohol and filled with fireworks. The perpetrator, Yu Xiao, was actually just laughing. The most clueless subordinate is the kind of idiot who can anger the leader, even in a pleasant atmosphere. Simon King heard the laughter and asked why. At this time, Chun Mai yelled at Yuxiao, but Yuxiao realized her mistake and was too frightened to speak. The book boy was once again dragged down by his stupid lover, so he had to shamelessly take advantage of the favor and explain to Simon King in a panic. The matter ends here. This is Yuxiao Shedong's second affair. However, there is already a fire in the backyard. When the third affair in chapter 64 was discovered, the Shedong ran away too. The banquet of the 4 Ben families. The second banquet was for sister-in-law Ben, to entertain for family members. She found out that Wu Yunyang was not at home and knew that the family members were favored by being close to each other, so she wanted to invite them to have sex with them. It seems natural, but it has profound meaning. Let's try to change the perspective and look at this matter from the perspective of Xiao Yu, an outsider of 4 cafes. Ben Si and his family are all contract workers, clerks, and servants of the Simon family. Compared to the maids who sell themselves directly, their status should probably be higher. However, while the leader of the Simon family was away, sister-in-law Ben played a trick and invited 4 people to have a drink. These 4 people are peers and colleagues with Xiao Yu. If sister-in-law Ben is targeting these business backbones in order to gain some benefits in the future, then as the same person, how can Xiao Yu, the eldest girl, maintain a psychological balance? Furthermore, a small piece of news was revealed later in this chapter. It turned out that Diane and Xiao Yu had a close relationship and began to fall in love. Later, when Bai's 4th sister-in-law actually developed Diane into her guest and successfully hooked up with Simon King through him. How embarrassing is this for Xiao Yu? So, if we are Xiao Yu and there is a colleague like this, Of course, it is very rare for the four cafes to be invited as a protagonist, because the wives and concubines were away. In order to get Simon King's consent, the orchids push the jade flute. The jade flute pushes the spring, and the spring plums push the spring plum. Yuxiao is the servant girl, so the orchid fragrance is not as good as Yuxiao. Yingchun's ownerly Pinger is the most favored, so Yuxiao is not as good as Yingchun. Chunmai does not rely on her master. Chunmai herself is Simon King's favorite, so Chunmai is naturally top of the family fun. Everyone wanted to push Chunmai to talk, but Chunmai was not that stupid. She knew that her relationship with Simon King was still underground, and they were still master and servant on the surface, so she cursed for the second time. It wasn't until the book boy couldn't stand it anymore and stepped forward to ask Simon King for instructions that they finally went to the banquet smoothly. Sister-in-law Ben was so happy that she felt as if she had fallen from the sky. Chunmai was called eldest aunt, Yingchun was called second aunt, Yuxiao was third aunt, and Langsheng was fourth aunt. They had all seen the ceremony. Chunmai and Yingchun sat down. Jade flutes and orchid fragrances sat opposite each other. Although we know the difference in status between the four major players, no one actually ranked them at all. However, sister-in-law Ben shamelessly ranked them. What followed was a diligent toast and persuasion. Everyone drank until they forgot the time, until they heard he said that the masters were about to return home, and then he hurriedly ran away. By the way, there are big differences in the details of returning home in the poem book and the embroidery book. In the original version of the poem, Chunmai took the lead and ran out crazily, but in the original version of the portrait, it was changed to Chunmai thanking sister-in-law by slowly and walking back slowly. In the original version of the poem, it was Lan Xiang who cursed the three people because she had lost her shoe and couldn't keep up, went to the portrait book and turned into Chunmai cursing the three people for losing her shoes. It can be said that the original version of the poem is describing an event, and is just a background for the wives and concubines to take fur coats at the third banquet, while the modification of the embroidery version appears to be more reasonable and clever. Plus the two previous scoldings, a large number of the reply text is all about Chunmai. Compared with other women, Chunmai will always be the most special one. 3. The banquet of the Wu family. The third banquet is the highlight of this chapter. Wu Dejinzi entertains all the wives and concubines of the Simon family. The banquet is the background, but the key is that two things happened. The first thing is to clear up the stolen gold. Maybe we will think that the dust of stealing gold has been settled. The real culprit was found and beaten and punished. Simon King has decided to keep Xia Hui'er. So what else can be settled? No, Simon King has no objections, but Wu Yunyang does. She is still holding in her anger and has not vented it. Last time on this morning, Sister Li Gui asked Simon King to intercede to keep Xia Hui'er. Simon King agreed and asked the servant to report to Wu Yunyang. Originally, it was the painting boy who sent Sister Li Gui back to the brothel, and Diane went to report it. However, the smart Diane knew that Wu Yunyang would be angry, and might even get angry at him, so he rushed to send Sister Li Gui away and asked the painting boy to report it. Wu Yunyang saw through Dana's thoughts in an instant, so she took the opportunity to vent her anger to Dan at the Wu family's banquet. Because Xia Hui'er's stealing of gold is a family personnel matter, Wu Yunyang should decide whether to punish her. No one except Simon King can interfere with her authority as the head wife. However, Sister Li Gui, a prostitute who claimed to be her goddaughter, turned out to be so powerful. Everyone could see that Sister Li Gui came to Simon King to intercede, not because of her identity as her goddaughter, but because she regarded herself as Simon King's old lover again. So Wu Yunyang probably had a strong feeling of being betrayed and betrayed. What a good slave. You sit on the altar and dispatch the generals again. What's wrong with the slaves you are used to now? You slave, your neck is too high and your neck is too high. I can't move, and I'm kidding. Son, I don't believe that if I don't tell him tomorrow, it won't count if I beat this deceitful slave like you. Wu Yunyang's insults were repeated 3 times in a row. Wu Yunyang was also very cruel, wasn't she? Unlike Pan Jinlian, who was witty and shrewd, Wu Yunyang reveals the power of a head wife in every aspect. No matter how kind and polite a person is in daily life, once he shows you the right power on the right occasion, it means that he actually has an extraordinary sense of order. This sense of order is like the heroes of Liangshan ranging their seats, like the attacker in the Grand View Garden saying that no matter how good King Wen is, she can't destroy my order. Moreover, Wu Yunyang is not done angry yet. The first thing she asked after returning home from the banquet was where Ximon King was. At this time, Li Jiar, who was staying at home, bumped her head against the south wall. He was in my room just now. I sent him to sleep. Wu Yunyang became even more angry. No words at all. Originally, the wives and concubines were all out drinking. So who asked Li Jiar to stay at home? Although she may be guilty of stealing gold, this just created an opportunity for her to welcome Ximon King. It was a blessing in disguise and a blessing in disguise. Since Jia Huayer's stay was approved by Ximon King, Wu Yunyang was angry and speechless, so she could only continue to vent her anger through the banquet hosted by Jiali and Ben's family. What the hell are you doing in vain? You bitch. Who told him to come and go? She thought it was Li Jiar who agreed, but Li Jiar replied that she had asked Ximon King for permission. Wu Yunyang choked after trying to grab bye-bye. He was in a panic. Only half of the painting was painted. What are you doing by letting it go out for nothing? Feeding others' eyes. Although women in ancient times were restricted in their movements, they were still allowed to walk on the streets during the Lantern Festival. It was obvious that Wu Yunyang was so angry that she was almost making trouble unreasonably. Meng Yulu, Li Ping'er, Pan Jinlian and Sister Ximon heard something was wrong, so they dispersed. The text does not mention any reaction of Li Jiar, but we can imagine the deep resentment in her heart. One day when revenge comes out, Wu Yunyang will be panicked and unable to deal with it. The second thing is to get the fur coat. The Lantern Festival was so cold and spring was so cold that I woke up from the alcohol. When I went out, the moon was still bright in the sky, but soon it was raining and snowing. The hot Ximon family also felt a chill, so during the banquet Wu Yunyang sent the servants home to get fur coats. Although it is only a few small leather jackets, the author's delicate hand has been interspersed with countless wonderful words, which even spread as far as the later text. Pour vinegar on the golden lotus to protect the shortcomings. Let's briefly sort it out below. What is a leather jacket? It is a coat made of the fur of animals, such as minks. Although there is no harm if it is not bought or sold. This is not our topic. We only need to know one thing. That is, the real material fur coat is far more valuable than it's beyond our imagination. For example, Li Ping'er's piece is worth 60 taels of silver. The 4 people who went to Wu Dejinzi's house for the banquet were Wu Yunyang, Meng Yulu, Pan Jinlian, and Li Ping'er. Only Pan Jinlian didn't have a fur coat, not even a second-hand one. So Qin Tong went home first to pick up the belongings of the 3 of them, and then Wu Yunyang arranged for Dian to pick up Pan Jinlian's belongings. Wu Yunyang originally wanted to give her a leather jacket from a pawn shop, but Pan Jinlian disagreed. Most of the leather jackets she pawned were old, and they looked shabby and embarrassing to wear, so it would be better to have them in good condition than in excess, right? What's more, if someone comes to redeem it, wouldn't it be more embarrassing and disgusting? So Wu Yunyang changed her story and said that she had not pawned it, but that someone else had sold it at a discount of 16 taels. By the way, she mentioned that the leather jacket from Wang Zhaoshuan mansion that she pawned was given to Li Jiar to wear. We might as well expand on this detail in context. Wang Sangguan, the young master of Wang Zhaoshuan's mansion, was short of money, so he became a fur coat. The money he got was probably to go whoring to Sister Li Gui. Leather coat. If you read it quickly, it's just a fur coat whoring, and the leather jacket fell into the hands of Li Jiar, a former prostitute. Li's brothel is really sure to take advantage of Wang Sangguan. Of course, with all the careful foreshadowing, we will probably be disappointed again when we see that Sister Li Gui really likes Wang Sangguan later on. Pan Jinlian agreed silently, so Qin Tong and Dian returned home one after another to get their fur coats. This is a colorful and confusing text. First, the piano boy went back to Wu Yunyang's room to look for Yuxiao. We all know that the Yuxiaos were drinking at Sis Xiaobi's house, but Xiaoyu was not invited, so she was very angry. The 4 whores are having a drink at Benxi's wife's house today. I don't know where the fur coat is, so I went to his house and asked him Yuxiao where he wanted to go. The opening words were for whores, expressing the anger that Xiaoyu had been holding back for a long time. Finally, there is Li Ping'er. She is already at the peak of happiness. but she should actually be afraid of divination, because she probably can't think of any better happiness. The hexagram, it's hard for the sun to do anything as an embarrassing hexagram. She probably doesn't want to believe it. If the hexagram is true, wouldn't the Taoist priest's name also make up for it? There was a bloody disaster and there were no cries in July and August. Although there was a flash of fear in her heart, how could she understand it when she was so happy? This meant that she could not be sad about Brother Guan's death. Otherwise her life would be in jeopardy. You are as good as Hung Luo, but it's a pity that the feet are a little short. Although it is euphemistic and meaningful, it is difficult to match the cruel reality. It is better to meet a tiger to pick off the road of 3 lives, than to encounter a double-edged sword in front of a person. Although she knows that the beauty among the tiger Pan Jinlian was horrified, but how could she believe that Wu Yunyang and Meng Yulu might be the more dangerous double-faced swordsmen? After the divination was over, Pan Jinlian walked out on her own. It's not that she doesn't believe in fate. She is still thinking about Bingjian's words in her life saying that her life will be short. So she is afraid. However, there is no way to escape the outcome of fate. Although it is uncertain, he can tell the outcome by himself. Tomorrow he will be buried in the street, buried in the road, or he will be buried in a coffin in the ditch. It may seem concise, but it is still sharp. It may seem open-minded, but it is deeply sad, whether you believe it or not. When your destiny is like this, what does it matter whether you believe it or not? As the saying goes, you can tell your fate, but you can't predict your actions. Although fortune-telling is as effective as Wu Shengshen, in fact, no one wants to believe it, and no one makes more efforts to change their destiny. Although the reality is a mess of grudges and grudges, it is the only thing they have after all. When the end of fate finally comes, when I read the last 20 chapters of Infinite Depression, I can't help but miss these grudges and grudges. Perhaps these small daily things that seem to be without storms reflect the life we have experienced for thousands of years.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.